James Clear begins his book, Atomic Habits, like a new day begins in the life of someone who has decided to change themselves, not with a big bang, but with a small, almost imperceptible step. From the first pages, he tells us that real change doesn't require a revolution, but a gentle bend in the right direction. In the introduction, he recounts a personal story of a tragic, life-changing event. A baseball bat hit him in the face when he was a teenager, shattering his skull and nearly killing him. He woke up from a long coma, unable to even walk or think clearly. He didn't start from scratch, but from below, and from there grew his entire philosophy, that small, repeated improvements make for a great comeback. After months of therapy and slow rehabilitation, he began to notice that his body and mind responded to very simple changes. A breathing exercise here, writing one line there, reading one page a day, then returning the next day to do the same thing. There was no sudden victory, no miraculous leap, but he discovered something more important. Small, repeated improvements are unbeatable. From that experience emerged the idea on which the entire book is based, that success is the product of small, accumulated habits, not momentary, grand decisions. Clear wants to redefine the meaning of transformation. In his view, change doesn't happen when we try to change ourselves overnight, but when we change the way we see change itself. He doesn't invite you to run fast, but to walk steadily. Every small habit you perform is a new vote for your future identity, and every time you repeat the same action, you are saying to the world, "This is me, and this is a better version of me that is silently growing." Clear talks about a concept he calls the law of 1% improvement. He says that a person who improves by a small percentage each day, even if it's just 1%, will become a completely different person a year later, because that small percentage adds up. It's like compound interest in banking, but here it's behavioral interest. In contrast, someone who deteriorates by 1% each day ends up falling towards zero. This is where we understand the central idea. Success isn't the result of huge achievements, but rather the result of repeated small improvements in the right direction. Clear cites numerous examples to illustrate his point. A British cycling company had been performing mediocre for decades until a new manager, Dave Brailsford, decided to implement the principle of small improvements. Instead of searching for a miracle, he began by improving every detail by a tiny percentage: the type of tires, the way they sit, the sleeping pad, even the hand soap. A few years later, the company was winning every Olympic title. There was no magic. There was a system of small, relentless habits. In this first chapter, Clear opens a window into the human mind and how it interacts with time. He says that we often overestimate what we can accomplish in a day and underestimate what we can achieve in a year. As a result, we quickly become discouraged because we don't see immediate results. He reminds us that change is like a block of ice placed on a table in a cold room. It remains frozen despite the many steps that rise from 1 to 2 to 3. And then at 32, suddenly it begins to melt. It's not the last step that's the culprit, but all the steps that came before it. True transformation happens in a long, silent moment when all we hear is the sound of habit working in the background. He also explains how the delayed effects of habits are what deceive us. The benefits don't appear immediately, but rather accumulate slowly. This is what he calls the plateau of hidden potential, the stage where it seems like you're putting in effort in vain, while real progress is silently fermenting inside you. When the results suddenly explode, people think you're lucky, but only you know how much patience has accumulated behind that moment. At the heart of this chapter, Clear criticizes the prevailing mindset that glorifies ultimate goals. He says, goals are important for setting direction, but they're not what makes progress. Systems, daily habits are what make the difference. The goal is the outcome you want to achieve, while the system is the path you take every day. If you only care about goals, you'll always feel frustrated when you don't reach them quickly. If you focus on the system, you'll live in a perpetual state of growth. He concludes this section with a poignant human message. You are not the result of your past, but the result of your current habits. What you do today, those small actions you see as insignificant, is what creates your true future. Habit isn't a shackle, it's a key to freedom. It's a hidden art form through which we reshape ourselves every day. You don't need to be a superhero, nor do you need endless motivation. All you need is to take one step and repeat it, until it becomes as natural as breathing. Clear says at the end of the introduction, your life will only change when you begin to see yourself as someone capable of change. That simple sentence sums up his entire philosophy. Change isn't external, but internal, in the way you think about yourself. Only when you believe you're not a prisoner of your habits can you begin to create new habits that will create a different life. And so ends the first chapter, outlining the book, a long journey toward change that begins with a tiny atom, a single habit, a single repeated decision. And from that atom, Clear builds his entire world, a world of small accumulations that create quiet miracles. True improvement is a slow race, but it's the only race in which the patient are unbeatable. Welcome, dear friend. Here's a summary of a new book from the Bookamin channel, which features in-depth and detailed summaries of self-improvement books. If you're a fan of reading, please subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and don't forget to like, please, and let's get started. Chapter 1: The Power of Small Habits. Every great change begins quietly. It doesn't start with a loud decision or a big plan, but with something tiny, a small action that almost looks invisible. Small habits are like seeds. At first, they seem to do nothing, but if you keep watering them, they grow roots deep inside you, and one day, they become a tree that changes your whole life. The idea behind small habits is simple. Tiny changes add up. If you get just 1% better every day, you won't notice much in a week. But over a year, that small improvement multiplies until you become more than 37 times better than when you started. The same is true for negative habits. If you get 1% worse every day, the decline will be slow at first, then suddenly clear. This is why the small things you do daily matter far more than the big things you do occasionally. Change is not about doing something huge once. It's about doing something small again and again. Think of a glacier melting. For hours, it looks the same. But when the temperature rises just enough, 1 small degree, the ice finally begins to melt. The real work was happening all along, but it wasn't visible. Our lives are the same. We often expect quick results, and when we don't see them, we quit. But progress is slow before it is sudden. That slow and invisible phase is what many people call the valley of disappointment. It's the time when you're doing everything right but seeing no change. You go to the gym for weeks, but your body looks the same. You save money, but your account doesn't seem to grow. You write daily, but nobody reads your words. Most people give up here not because progress is impossible, but because it's hidden. Real change is building up beneath the surface, preparing for its breakthrough moment. To understand this better, imagine you are heating an ice cube. You start at 25 degrees, then 26, 27, 28, nothing happens. Then at 32 degrees, the ice suddenly begins to melt. The magic was not at 32, it was in every degree before that. Those small increases were what made the final change possible. That's what small habits do. They build silent momentum until the tipping point arrives. This is why focusing only on goals doesn't work. Goals are about the results you want. Habits are about the systems that lead to those results. Everyone has the same goals, to be healthy, successful, happy, but not everyone has the same systems. Winners and losers often share the same goals. The difference lies in their daily process. The small, consistent actions shape the outcome, not the wish for success. It's easy to think that success comes from one big decision, but that's an illusion. Real success is built through repetition. If you make tiny improvements daily, you won't notice them right away. But the compound effect, like interest in a bank, will make those efforts grow exponentially. The math of habits is strange. Time multiplies whatever you feed it. Good habits make time your ally, bad habits make it your enemy. Another important idea is identity. Every small action you take is a vote for the kind of person you want to become. Each time you write, you are a writer. Each time you exercise, you are an athlete. Each time you read, you are a reader. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to keep voting for your future self. Change is not about trying to be someone new overnight. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally does the things you admire. In many ways, habits are the building blocks of identity. You don't need massive motivation when your habits match the person you believe you are. You simply act in harmony with your own story. That's why small changes can transform not only what you do, but who you are. You're not forcing yourself to act differently, you're teaching your mind a new way of being. There's also a quiet kind of freedom in this. You realize that your life doesn't have to change in one dramatic leap. You don't need to fix yourself overnight. You just need to make today a little better than yesterday. And when you fail, as everyone does, you don't need to feel defeated. You simply return to your small actions because consistency is what keeps the story moving. Sometimes people say, I want to change my life, but they try to do it all at once. They go from never exercising to running 5 miles a day, from eating poorly to following a strict diet. It feels exciting at first, but it rarely lasts. The energy fades and they fall back to old ways. But if you start small, if you make change easy and repeatable, it grows naturally. Small habits are easier to build and harder to break. Let's take an example. Imagine you want to become someone who reads more. You don't start with a goal like read 50 books this year. Instead, you make a system, read 1 page every night before bed. 1 page is so easy that you have no reason to skip it. And once you start reading, you often keep going. It's not about willpower, it's about lowering the barrier. The smaller the habit, the more consistent you become. Over time, these tiny habits stack up. They create new patterns in your brain, new ways of thinking and acting. What once took effort becomes natural. You no longer try to be healthy, you simply are. You no longer force yourself to save money, you simply do. The transformation is subtle but powerful, like the slow growth of a tree whose roots you cannot see. The beauty of small habits is that they remind us of something deeply human. Progress is not about perfection, but about persistence. You don't need to change everything, you just need to keep moving forward. Improvement is not a race, it's a rhythm. A quiet, steady rhythm that reshapes your life from within. And so the power of small habits lies not in their size, but in their consistency. Each small act is a whisper of your potential, a promise you make to your future self. With every repetition, you tell your mind, this is who I am becoming. And one day, without realizing it, you'll look back and see that the little things weren't little at all, they were everything. Tiny steps become giant leaps when you refuse to stop taking them. Chapter 2: How do habits work? Deep within the human psyche, there are invisible threads that govern our daily behavior, threads that stretch between thought and action, between intention and execution, between desire and satisfaction. These threads are called habits. They do not arise suddenly, nor are they easily erased, because they are not simply repetitive actions, but rather complete cycles that feed upon themselves. This chapter delves into the secret of how these cycles are formed, like lifting the lid off a precise clock to observe how the tiny gears move in wondrous harmony. Every habit, no matter how simple it may seem, passes through 4 basic stages that constitute what is known as the habit cycle: cue, desire, response, and reward. It is a closed loop, in which behavior begins as a response to a cue and ends with a reward that fuels the motivation to repeat the behavior again. The cue is the first whisper that awakens action. It may be something tangible, like seeing a cup of coffee in the morning, or an internal feeling such as fatigue or anxiety. It is the sign that alerts the mind to the approach of something known. Then comes the desire, the spark that energizes the movement. We don't desire the action itself, but rather the change we believe it will bring about in our condition. No one desires coffee for its own sake, but rather the alertness it provides, nor smoking for its own sake, but rather the temporary calm it brings. Next comes the response, the action we take to counteract that desire. It could be as simple as unlocking our phone, or as complex as engaging in a conversation or completing a task. Finally comes the reward, the moment when the brain feels satisfied. This reward is what cements the loop in memory, making the brain associate the signal with the reward and crave to repeat it later. It's a magical, precise circuit, managed in a fraction of a second without our awareness. Every time it's completed, the neural connection responsible for it is strengthened until the habit becomes more powerful than the decision itself. That's why it's said that we don't control our future, but rather our habits, because they create the future without asking permission. The human brain, at its core, is a reward-seeking machine. It shortens distances and forms patterns to save effort. That's why habits were created. They are the brain's intelligent operating system, allowing it to accomplish without thinking. When you drive your car without being aware of every move or pick up your phone whenever you're bored, it's because habit has taken over the driving for you. But this blessing can turn into a curse. Just as good habits conserve energy, bad habits consume it in the opposite direction. The mind doesn't differentiate between a habit that builds you up and one that destroys you, as long as both deliver an immediate reward. That's why awareness is the only light that can break the cycle. You can't change what you can't see. When you start noticing the cues that trigger your behavior, you've taken the first step toward breaking free. The cue could be a place, a time, a smell, a feeling, or even a person. How many habits have been associated with a specific chair in the house, a phone notification sound, or a certain time of day? The environment is the stage on which habits are played out every day, and we are the actors playing the same role each time. Habits aren't eliminated, they are replaced. You can't erase the habit cycle, but you can change its content. Keep the cue and reward and change the response. For example, if you eat sweets whenever you feel stressed, you can keep the cue stress and the reward rest, but change the response to deep breathing, walking, or writing. The brain doesn't resist change if it finds the end result still feels good, but it resists when it's deprived of that pleasure. Therefore, the intelligence in building habits lies not in fighting the urge, but in redirecting it. This chapter demonstrates that humans are not lazy creatures, as the saying goes, but rather energy-saving creatures. Every new habit initially resists this frugal nature, because the mind prefers familiar, not novel ways. Therefore, repetition is the greatest teacher. Every time you repeat a behavior, you send a message to your brain saying, "This is important, keep it." Over time, the behavior transitions from conscious to unconscious, from effort to ease, from decision to instinct. When the habit reaches that stage, you become free in a new way, free because you no longer need willpower to do what's right. True freedom doesn't come from eliminating habits, but from having habits that serve you without you having to think about them. Waking up early without battling with yourself, choosing healthy foods without hesitation, working out without feeling compelled. This is the essence of sustainable change, making what's right easy. Even deeper, there's another secret. Habits aren't just a means to achieving goals, they're a reflection of what you believe about yourself. What you do every day is a mirror of your identity. If you write every day, it's because you see yourself as a writer. If you take care of your body, it's because you see yourself as a disciplined person. Therefore, a habit can only grow sustainably if it's aligned with your self-perception. You can't maintain a habit that contradicts your inner identity, even if it seems perfect. Here it becomes clear that building habits isn't just a behavioral modification, but a reshaping of identity, step by step, from the inside out. At the end of this chapter, the quiet truth that recurs throughout the book emerges. Great change begins not with a plan, not with a rigid decision, but with simple observation, noticing what you do, when, and why. From that small observation begins awareness, and from awareness arises freedom. All freedom requires a system to survive, and a system is nothing more than a set of habits that you have decided to serve you rather than control you. You don't repeat actions in vain, you repeat yourself until you master them. Chapter 3: The Architecture of New Habits. Change does not begin with thunder, it begins with a whisper. Every new habit is a quiet revolution, a rebellion against the inertia of the familiar. To build a new pattern of behavior is not merely to act differently, it is to reshape the mind's landscape, to carve a new path through the dense forest of instinct and routine. Every habit starts fragile, like a seed that trembles in the wind. It asks for little, a moment of awareness, a flicker of effort, a promise repeated often enough to take root. Yet that seed holds within it the potential to transform a life if it is nurtured in the right soil with the right light. At the heart of this process lies a truth both simple and profound. We do not rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. Ambition alone cannot sustain a habit. Desire burns bright but burns out quickly. Systems, the invisible scaffolding of daily practice, are what endure. To build a new habit, one must learn the 4 laws of behavioral change. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. These are not rigid rules, but principles that speak to how the human brain interprets reward and effort. They are the architecture of lasting transformation. The first law, make it obvious, is about clarity. The brain cannot act on what it does not see. Habits thrive when the cues that trigger them are visible and unambiguous. A book placed on your pillow becomes an invitation to read. Running shoes by the door whisper the promise of movement. When we fail to design our environment, we let randomness design our lives. The mind follows the path of least resistance, and environment is the terrain it walks upon. Awareness is the first spark. To change, one must see, yet most of our days unfold in autopilot. We wake, scroll, rush, consume, react, without noticing the tiny rituals that compose our existence. The power of observation breaks this trance. To watch oneself with gentle curiosity is to hold a mirror to the subconscious. It is not about judgment, but recognition. You cannot escape a prison you do not know you are in. The second law, make it attractive, speaks to emotion, the current that drives all action. We are not logical creatures. We are emotional ones who justify with logic after the fact. To build a habit that lasts, it must resonate with pleasure, meaning, or identity. The brain must look forward to it. This is why the most successful habits are those linked to something already loved. Pair the new with the enjoyable. Listen to your favorite music only when you exercise. Write in a cafe you adore. Combine what you need to do with what you want to do. The mind resists discipline, but it surrenders easily to delight. Attraction is the art of making good behavior feel like a reward in itself. The third law, make it easy, dismantles one of the greatest illusions of self-improvement, that success requires enormous effort. In truth, willpower is a fragile resource and motivation is unreliable. The key to persistence is simplicity. Reduce friction until action becomes almost automatic. If you want to start reading, place the book in plain sight. If you want to meditate, start with 1 minute, not 20. It is better to do less than you hope than nothing at all. The mind fears difficulty, not consistency. When the barrier to action is low, behavior repeats itself effortlessly. Each repetition is a vote cast for the kind of person you are becoming. Over time, identity shifts, quietly, invisibly, until one day, the effort disappears, and what once felt foreign now feels natural. The final law, make it satisfying, is the emotional seal that locks a habit in place. The human brain is wired for immediate gratification. Future rewards, however grand, cannot compete with the pleasures of now. Therefore, one must find ways to bring the satisfaction forward, to make good behavior feel good instantly. Crossing a task off a list, tracking progress with visible marks, or feeling the small rush of self-respect after keeping a promise, these are not trivial. They are the neural signals of reinforcement, the language by which the brain learns. Every time you end an action with a sense of completion or pride, the mind whispers, "Do this again." Together, these laws form a cycle of their own: cue, craving, response, reward, and by shaping each link, you shape the chain of behavior itself. Habits, in truth, are nothing more than rehearsed decisions, automated through repetition and emotion. But perhaps the most delicate insight here is this: you do not build a habit by seeking perfection, but by refusing to break the chain. Missing once is not failure, missing twice begins to rewrite the pattern. Forgive the lapse and return to the rhythm. Progress is a dance of falling and rising. What matters is not the stumble, but the step that follows. And woven through this entire philosophy is a quiet paradox. The smaller the action, the greater its power, because small actions bypass resistance. They slip past the defenses of the ego, which often demands grand change or none at all. Starting small is not weakness, it is strategy. A single push can move a boulder if the angle is right. To change one habit is to open a door to a new identity. Each repetition is a brushstroke in the portrait of who you are becoming. At first, the strokes seem random, disconnected, uncertain, but over time, they reveal a pattern, a person who does not merely wish to change, but is changing. In the end, habit building is not about control, but about design, designing the moments that design you. When you make the right actions easy, the wrong ones hard, and the rewards immediate, you create a world where good behavior becomes the path of least resistance. And that is the essence of freedom, not to fight your nature, but to align it with your intention, to let the wind of habit carry you where discipline once had to drag you. True transformation is not dramatic. It is patient, invisible, inevitable like dawn. It comes quietly, and when it arrives, everything is light. Chapter 4: How to Break Bad Habits. Bad habits are like weeds in a garden. They start small, maybe even unnoticed, but if you don't pull them out early, they grow roots that dig deep into your life. Everyone has habits they wish they could change: checking the phone too often, eating when bored, wasting time, or overthinking. The truth is, bad habits are not signs of weakness. They are simply patterns your brain has learned, and what the brain learns, it can also unlearn. To break a bad habit, you need to understand one thing: you can't erase it, but you can replace it. The brain never truly forgets an old pattern, but you can weaken it by giving it less attention and strength. A bad habit is like a path in the forest. The more you walk it, the clearer it becomes. The less you use it, the more it fades under grass and leaves. The goal is not to fight the path, but to stop walking on it and start building a new one. Bad habits follow the same four-step pattern as good ones: cue, craving, response, and reward. To break them, you simply reverse the process, make the cues invisible, the cravings unattractive, the responses difficult, and the rewards unsatisfying. Let's go step by step. First, make the cue invisible. Habits start when your brain notices a signal. If you don't see the cue, you don't start the habit. If you always reach for snacks when you see them on the counter, hide them. If you waste time on your phone, keep it in another room while you work. It's not about willpower, it's about environment. When you design your surroundings to remove temptation, you save yourself from many battles. You can't always control your thoughts, but you can control what triggers them. Second, make the habit unattractive. We do bad habits because, in the moment, they seem to offer comfort or pleasure. But most pleasures are short-term and they leave a long-term cost. To weaken a bad habit, you have to see it for what it truly is: not a relief, but a trap. Start linking the habit with the negative feelings it brings afterward. For example, instead of thinking, "Smoking helps me relax," remind yourself, "Smoking steals my energy and makes me weaker." Reframe your thoughts. The brain follows meaning. If you change how you see the habit, you change how you feel about it. Third, make it difficult. The harder it is to do something, the less you'll do it. This simple truth can change your life. Add friction to your bad habits. If you waste time on social media, log out every time or delete the apps from your phone. If you overspend, remove saved credit cards from online stores. Make every bad habit inconvenient. The small delays will give your brain time to think, and thinking breaks the automatic cycle. At the same time, make your good habits easy to start. This way, your energy naturally flows in a better direction. Fourth, make the habit unsatisfying. Every habit continues because it gives some kind of reward. To stop it, you must break that link between the behavior and the reward. One way is to hold yourself accountable. Tell a friend what you're trying to change. Promise that if you fail, you'll face a small consequence. Maybe donate money to a cause you don't like. Suddenly, doing the bad habit no longer feels rewarding. It feels costly. You can also use reflection as a tool. After giving in to a bad habit, take a moment to write down how you feel. Most of the time, you'll see regret or emptiness. Reading those notes later reminds you that the reward wasn't real. But the deeper truth about bad habits is this: they often hide a real need. You don't check your phone just for fun, you're looking for connection. You don't eat junk food just for taste, you're seeking comfort. You don't procrastinate because you're lazy, you're avoiding fear or discomfort. When you understand the need behind the habit, you can find a healthier way to meet it. Instead of fighting yourself, listen to what your habit is trying to tell you. Breaking bad habits is not about punishment. It's about replacing false comfort with real growth. When you remove a habit, don't leave an empty space, fill it with something better. If you stop scrolling late at night, replace it with reading or journaling. If you stop drinking to escape stress, replace it with exercise or deep breathing. Nature hates a vacuum, and so does the human mind. If you don't fill the gap, the old habit will come back. It's also important to understand that progress will never be perfect. You will slip up. You will have days when you fall back into old patterns. That's okay. Failure isn't the end, it's part of the process. The real danger is not falling, it's staying down. When you mess up, don't tell yourself, I failed. Tell yourself, I'm learning. Each time you notice the mistake sooner or recover faster, that's improvement. You are reprogramming your brain one day at a time. Sometimes it helps to change how you see yourself. Instead of saying, I'm trying to quit smoking, say, I'm not a smoker. Instead of I'm trying to eat healthy, say, I'm the kind of person who takes care of my body. These small shifts in identity are powerful. Your brain wants to stay consistent with the story you tell about yourself. Change the story, and the actions will start to match. Remember, breaking a bad habit is not about being strong all the time. It's about being smart. The strongest people are not the ones with the most willpower. They're the ones who design their lives so they don't need much of it. They set up systems, not struggles. And one day you'll notice something amazing. The habit that used to control you will lose its power. You'll feel the urge and let it pass. You'll face temptation and smile because you know you've grown beyond it. That moment, quiet, calm, powerful, is freedom. You don't need to be perfect to change your life. You just need to make the bad habit harder, the good habit easier, and never stop trying again. Chapter 5: Identity and Habits. When most people try to change, they focus on what they want to achieve, to lose weight, to earn more money, to stop a bad habit. But the truth is, real change doesn't start with what you want to have. It starts with who you want to be. Goals are about results. Identity is about beliefs. And while goals can motivate you for a while, identity shapes your actions forever. Think about it like this: every action you take is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. When you write one page, you're voting for the identity of a writer. When you exercise, you're voting for the identity of an active person. When you save money, you're voting for the identity of a responsible person. Each small action may seem meaningless in the moment, but together they build proof that this is who you are. The reason many people struggle with change is that they try to change their behavior without changing their identity. They say, I want to stop smoking, but deep down they still think, I'm a smoker trying to quit. As long as your self-image doesn't change, your habits will always pull you back to your old identity. The mind naturally acts in harmony with what it believes to be true. That's why the most powerful transformation happens when you start thinking differently about yourself. Let's look at two levels of change: outcomes and identity. Outcome-based change focuses on the results. I want to lose 10 pounds. Identity-based change focuses on who you become. I want to be the kind of person who doesn't miss a workout. The first depends on external success. The second grows from the inside out. When your identity shifts, your behavior follows naturally without constant effort or motivation. Here's a simple example. Imagine two people trying to stop smoking. The first person says, no thanks, I'm trying to quit. The second says, no thanks, I don't smoke. Both are refusing the cigarette, but the difference in words shows a difference in mindset. The first still identifies as a smoker. They are fighting against their nature. The second has already changed how they see themselves. They're acting in harmony with a new identity. That small shift in belief makes all the difference. Your habits and your identity feed each other in a continuous loop. What you do reinforces who you think you are, and who you think you are drives what you do. If you believe you're bad at managing money, you'll avoid learning about it. If you believe you're not disciplined, you'll skip difficult tasks. But if you start to act like the person you want to be, even in small ways, your brain begins to update its story about you. Over time, you stop pretending, you simply are that person. The best way to build new habits, then, is to start with identity. Instead of asking, what do I want to achieve? Ask, who do I want to become? Do you want to be a healthy person? Then each workout, no matter how small, proves that identity. Do you want to be an organized person? Then every time you clean your desk, you're living that story. It's not about being perfect. It's about building evidence for the kind of person you wish to be. This is powerful because it frees you from needing constant motivation. You no longer chase change, you embody it. You don't need to force yourself to write. You simply write because that's what a writer does. You don't need to beg yourself to study. You simply study because that's who you are becoming. When identity aligns with habit, action becomes effortless. But identity can also work against you if you hold onto the wrong beliefs. For example, someone might say, "I'm just not a morning person," or "I've never been good at relationships." These sound like harmless phrases, but they are invisible prisons. Each one locks you inside an old version of yourself and makes growth harder. The good news is, identity is flexible. You can always rewrite the story. A useful way to start is to think in identity statements. I'm the kind of person who keeps promises to myself. I'm the kind of person who moves my body every day. I'm the kind of person who chooses calm over anger. Repeat them often and back them up with small actions. You don't need to believe them fully at first. Belief grows from evidence. Every action is a small proof that turns words into truth. Changing identity takes time because your brain needs repetition to trust the new story. It's like carving a new path through a forest. The more you walk it, the clearer it becomes. The old path will always be there, but if you stop using it, it slowly disappears under leaves and silence. Of course, doubt will show up. You might think, "Who am I kidding? I've failed so many times." But remember this, every moment is a vote. You don't need to win every vote. You just need to keep voting for your future self more often than your past one. Progress is about majority, not perfection. Another key idea is to connect your habits to your values. Ask yourself, why does this matter to me? If you value freedom, saving money becomes meaningful. If you value health, exercising feels important. If you value growth, learning feels exciting. When your habits reflect your values, they stop feeling like chores and start feeling like self-expression. You're not forcing yourself to change, you're living your truth. Identity-based habits also protect you when life gets hard. Motivation can fade, but identity remains. You might not feel like exercising, but you'll still do it because I'm the kind of person who moves my body. That's the quiet strength of identity. It carries you through when motivation is gone. And there's a beautiful lesson here. You don't have to become someone new. You have to return to the best version of yourself. The person who keeps promises, the person who dreams, grows, and cares. The habits are simply tools to help you live like that person again. So if you want to change your habits, don't just focus on what you want to do, focus on who you want to be. The more your actions align with that vision, the stronger it becomes. Eventually, the change is no longer something you're trying to achieve. It becomes part of who you are. The goal isn't to act differently for a while. The goal is to become the kind of person who naturally does what you once struggled to do. Chapter 6: Motivation and Systems. When people try to improve their lives, they often focus on motivation. They think, "I just need more willpower," or "I'll wait until I feel inspired." But motivation is unreliable. Some days you'll feel motivated, some days you won't. The problem is not you, it's the system you're using. The real power of lasting change lies not in bursts of motivation, but in strong systems. A system is the collection of habits, routines, and environments that guide your behavior automatically. Motivation comes and goes. But a well-designed system works even when you don't feel like it. Think of it like a train. Motivation is the fuel, systems are the tracks. A train can't move far on fuel alone, it needs tracks to guide it. Without a system, motivation will burn out and you'll stall. With a system, small effort compounds into consistent progress, day after day. Most people rely on motivation because it feels exciting. I want to start running because I feel inspired. But the truth is, inspiration rarely lasts. If you wait for it, you'll wait forever. The smarter approach is to create a system that works regardless of your mood. This could be a daily routine, a habit stack, or a carefully designed environment. Here's the key idea. You don't need motivation to start a habit. you need a system that makes the habit easy to do. For example, if you want to write every day, don't wait for a moment of inspiration. Decide on a small action, like writing one paragraph, and do it at the same time every day. Your system is now in place. The time and location act as triggers. You show up, and the habit flows naturally. Motivation becomes optional. Another important concept is the role of immediate rewards. Humans are wired to respond to instant gratification. We overvalue short-term pleasure and undervalue long-term benefits. This is why habits fail. We try to do something that is good for the future, but offers no immediate satisfaction. A system helps here too. By designing small, immediate rewards into your habits, you make them more appealing. Reading a page from a book may feel small, but combining it with a warm cup of tea or a comfortable chair makes it satisfying. Exercising for 2 minutes may seem minimal, but the feeling of completing it gives instant feedback. Systems transform delayed benefits into small, immediate wins, keeping you consistent. Motivation can also be unreliable because it relies on emotions. Some days you feel motivated, other days you feel tired, stressed, or distracted. A strong system doesn't care about how you feel. It's a plan that works even when emotions fail. It builds habits into routines that don't require a lot of thought or decision-making. Another reason systems are powerful is that they reduce friction. Every habit has resistance. The harder it is to start, the less likely you are to do it. By designing a system that lowers resistance, you make success easier. For example, if you want to eat healthier, prep your meals in advance. If you want to exercise, keep your gear ready the night before. The less friction, the more automatic the behavior becomes. There's also a concept called habit stacking, which is part of systems thinking. This is when you attach a new habit to an existing habit, so the old habit becomes a cue for the new one. For example, after I brush my teeth, I will floss. After I make coffee, I will write one paragraph. Systems like these remove the need for motivation by embedding habits into your daily routine. It's important to understand the difference between motivation-driven change and system-driven change. Motivation feels exciting and heroic, but it's short-lived. Systems feel ordinary and unglamorous, but they create lasting results. Motivation can start you, systems can sustain you. Here's a practical tip. When you feel unmotivated, ask yourself, what small step can I take? Start tiny. Systems work best when the first action is so easy you can't say no. Motivation will follow after you start. Often, the act of doing creates the feeling of inspiration, not the other way around. Finally, systems create freedom. Many people think routines are restrictive, but in reality, they free you from constant decision-making and stress. When your habits are embedded into a system, your brain doesn't need to fight or decide all the time. You don't need constant self-control or effort. The system carries you forward automatically. Motivation is fleeting. Inspiration comes and goes. Willpower is limited. But a carefully designed system of small, repeatable actions allows you to keep moving, even when your emotions are not on your side. That's why successful people don't rely on motivation, they rely on strong systems. Don't wait for motivation. Build a system that moves you forward even on the days you don't feel like it. By focusing on systems rather than feelings, you create habits that last. Your environment, routines, and small repeated actions become the engine that drives your success. Motivation is just the spark. Systems are the steady flame that never goes out. Chapter 7. The role of environment in shaping habits. When people talk about change, they often focus on willpower, that invisible strength we are supposed to use to resist bad habits and stick to good ones. But here's the truth. Your environment shapes your behavior more than your willpower ever could. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if your surroundings constantly tempt or distract you, change becomes an uphill battle. The human brain is deeply sensitive to cues, sights, sounds, smells, and even people that trigger automatic responses. That's why the easiest way to change your habits is not to fight harder, but to design your environment better. Think of it this way. If you keep cookies on the counter, you'll eat more cookies. If you keep your running shoes by the door, you'll run more often. If your phone sits next to your bed, you'll check it the moment you wake up. Your surroundings quietly guide your actions, whether you notice them or not. Your environment is like a silent partner in your habits. It can work for you or against you. The goal is to make your good habits obvious and your bad habits invisible. Let's start with the first idea. Make cues for good habits easy to see. If you want to read more, leave a book on your pillow or desk. If you want to drink more water, place a glass where you can see it. If you want to eat healthy, keep fruits in a visible bowl instead of hiding them in the fridge. Simple changes like these make it easier for your brain to notice what matters. When you see the cue, the behavior follows naturally. On the other hand, make cues for bad habits disappear. Hide the snacks, turn off notifications, move the TV remote out of reach. Out of sight really does mean out of mind. The less you see something, the less you think about it, and the less power it has over you. A useful trick is called environment design. It means shaping your space to make the right choice the easy one. For example, if you want to eat healthier, don't rely on self-control every time you're hungry. Just make healthy food the most convenient option. Prepare meals in advance, use smaller plates, and keep junk food far away. You don't need to be strong if you're smart about your setup. If you want to focus while working, organize your workspace so that distractions are physically removed. Keep only what you need on your desk. A clear space helps create a clear mind. You can also use location as a tool. For instance, dedicate one specific spot for studying, another for relaxing, and another for eating. This helps your brain associate each place with a particular behavior. That's why environment design works so well. You don't have to remember to act differently, your surroundings remind you. But your environment is not just physical, it's also social. The people around you can lift you higher or pull you down. If you spend time with people who eat healthy, read books, or exercise regularly, you'll naturally start doing those things too. Humans are wired to fit in, it's part of our survival instinct. We copy the habits of the groups we belong to because belonging feels safe. So choose your environment carefully. If you want to grow, surround yourself with people who are already living the way you want to live. Join a gym where others are active. Spend time with friends who inspire you, not those who drain you. Even small exposure matters. Watching others live well plants a seed in your mind that says, I can do that too. Of course, sometimes you can't change your environment completely. Maybe you live or work in a place full of old triggers. In that case, you can still change how you interact with it. If your kitchen tempts you to snack, rearrange the shelves so healthy foods are visible and treats are hidden. If your desk reminds you of stress, clean it and add something calming, like a plant or a photo. Small changes create new signals, and those signals guide your mind toward better actions. There's another powerful idea here: habit stacking with environment cues. This means linking a new habit to an existing part of your routine or space. For example, after I make coffee in the morning, I'll write one sentence in my journal. Or after I brush my teeth, I'll stretch for 2 minutes. The environment, in this case, your coffee corner or bathroom, becomes a reminder to act. When you repeat this link, the connection grows stronger until it feels automatic. Sometimes people think they lack motivation, but what they really lack is a supportive environment. Imagine trying to eat healthy when your fridge is full of soda and fast food, or trying to study in a room with a TV, noise, and open apps. It's not that you're weak, it's that your environment is pulling you in the wrong direction. The easiest habit is the one that fits naturally into your surroundings. Another important thing to remember: small environmental changes often lead to big results. Moving your phone charger to another room might help you sleep better. Placing a water bottle on your desk might double your hydration. Buying a bookshelf and keeping it full might make you read more than ever before. Change the cues, and the behavior follows. Your environment also sends constant signals about who you are. A tidy room tells your brain, I'm an organized person. A cluttered space whispers, I'm overwhelmed. When you clean, organize, or design your surroundings, you're not just managing objects, you're shaping identity. You're creating a world that supports the story you want to live. And this is the beauty of it all. Changing your environment is often easier than changing your mind. When you align your surroundings with your goals, you stop fighting yourself. You don't need endless self-control. You simply make good choices automatic and bad ones inconvenient. So the next time you struggle with a habit, don't ask, what's wrong with me? Ask, what around me is making this harder? Change that, move an object, adjust a space, shift a routine, and watch how your behavior begins to change with almost no effort. You don't need more willpower, you need fewer obstacles. Build an environment where the right choice is the easy choice. Dear reader, this concludes the first part of this book summary. See you the day after tomorrow with the second and final part. The second part includes new and very important topics, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive all our new content.